probably going to have to lead off on this one.
Yes.
For obvious reasons, is that basically I could put my foot in it and get myself killed on Twitter.
Okay, well, I'll probably get myself killed on Twitter as well. But
Yeah,
actually,
well-
they were ignoring me because we tried it, didn't we?
We-
You got shouted at and I didn't.
Yeah, I think we got about 2 tweets basically going, "We got our own songs, thank you." It's kind of like, yeah, you missed the point.
Yeah,
We were actually having a go at you with this song.
yeah.
Yes, radical feminism, and why it's different to feminism.
Oh, that's a good question.
Why there is, I think, there's feminism
Yes.
and there's feminism,
Yes.
which I would lump in internet feminism.
Yes, interesting.
which is more radical feminism. I think a lot of it that one may encounter in feminism tends to be best described as professional umbrage takers.
Yeah.
I think it's probably fair to say that most feminists wouldn't recognise internet feminism.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much everybody is a feminist, but pretty much by default without realising
not
it.
be if you're alive in the 21st century.
That's right. You basically, you ask somebody.
Unless you're actually kind of thinking, maybe I'll go off and fight with ISIS. You're probably a feminist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, most people, you ask them the question, do you think people should be equal regardless of gender? The answer's pretty much always going to be yes.
Yeah.
If it's not, they're an arsehole.
Yeah, it's an easy barometer, it's an easy test.
Everybody pretty much is a feminist, but a feminist...
Yes.
And that's where we get into murky waters.
Yes, no, I see what you mean with that. Yeah, I think there is... I mean, basically kind of what we were looking at with Mad Rad Femme, which is the song we're talking about, was what are now... It's kind of disappointing that we didn't do it later, we might have to do another one.
Yeah.
Because that particular group of radical feminists are the ones who are specifically targeting transgender people.
Yes, they're TERFs.
Yes, TERFs, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, which is trans-excluding radical feminists.
Yes.
And the thing is, if we'd have... Because of that, that gives you TERF War.
Yeah.
Which would have been quite a good song title. I think somebody's already done it, but it doesn't mean we can't do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and it would have been, we could have gone with some kind of sort of Public Enemy type kind of...
Rage
Against the Machine.
I'm not... I think Rage Against the Machine I'd have more confidence with.
Yeah.
I don't think sort of like... given my obvious kind of, well, let's be honest, whiteness, I don't think I'd feel entirely comfortable doing hip hop. I think it would have to be, I think if we ever did hip hop of any kind, it would have to be mocking the fact that I'm white. It would have to be very clearly white hip hop.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
I mean, I think we can use the musical form of rap.
Yes.
And I think that's okay.
Yes. Well, I think a subject like Turf War would be quite good, because obviously you're dealing with gender politics, whereas initially hip-hop was dealing with race politics.
Yeah. And then you get to, it's just a snappy sound, it lends itself to some interesting lyrical things.
Yes.
But the Mad Rad Femme thing came from, what was it, Bad Romance, wasn't it? Lady Gaga.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, because that was your significant other's suggestion of, hey, you should do a song called Bad Rad Femme, and we went, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that actually worked,
Yeah.
That's right, yes, because you said you were working on something that's basically, it was mainly having a go at, I think it was the Julie's Bindle and Birchall for stuff they'd written at the time.
Yes.
And I'd mentioned it to Raves, and he'd suggested a Lady Gaga style parody, as obviously Lady Gaga being somewhat kind of like very high profile at the time, and obviously somewhat annoying certain branches of radical feminism
and,
as
even
basically
more
being
mainstream
sort of,
feminism because because she's feminist in that kind of small f. She's feminist rather than a feminist, I would say. In that she thinks that she can do whatever she likes, even though she's a girl.
Yes,
exactly. Nothing should actually kind of stop her, and it doesn't actually occur to her. And she does. I think she's definitely got up the nose of a few of the professional umbrage takers you get on the internet.
Yeah.
And who will jump down the throat of anything that doesn't reference everything. It's like recently there's been that video about walking as a woman in New York.
Right.
Have you seen that one?
No, I've not. No.
And it's just somebody walking down the street, and she's being filmed, secret filming. There's somebody in front of her with a camera in a backpack pointing back, and all it's doing is it's picking up all the catcalls that she gets.
Oh right. Oh yes, I've heard of it, not seen it.
Yeah, and all the comments and catcalls and people kind of following her down the street going, why won't you talk to me, why won't you talk to me, yeah, you're pretty, you should take notice of me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And all the blokes doing this, and there's a lot of, there have been comments of, oh, where's all the white dudes? And that's, I see what they're saying.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
No, it's not the point.
No, we're not, it's not saying that, missing the point to a massive degree. It's not.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're trying to obviously sort of say something here about basically kind of issues experienced by women on a day-to-day basis insofar as basically their position as women.
Yeah.
And you want to make it about race politics.
Yeah, you want to make it about race, and you want to make it about men.
Like, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, you basically decided to kind of like sort of, nah, what about me? I'm guessing that a lot of things are like, oh yeah, I bet you deliberately did this walking through a particularly black area.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it's
it's kind of like, well, no, I just picked an area of
it's just I picked the area where I live.
Yeah.
And went outside.
Or somewhere I walk, feel sort of vaguely, or somewhere where I have actually experienced this on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Figure kind of like, well, if I go down there with a camera, I can basically show what I experience on a day-to-day basis and sort of say, this is like my normal route to work or something, and kind of like this is what I get, rather than basically, sort of perhaps going for a control experiment somewhere else and sort of like, I did it in this neighbourhood, because you're not actually basically trying to sort of show sexism by neighbourhoods. You're just trying to show the issue as a general kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like if you were actually conducting a proper scientific experiment, it's like, well, I basically walked the same amount of kind of steps in this neighbourhood and in this neighbourhood over here, trying to show sort of sexism geographically.
Yeah. And also you're going to go to locations where there are lots of people about. If you kind of probably, if they walk down the street in the Hamptons, there wouldn't be anybody there.
No.
Probably get arrested for walking.
Not many, there wouldn't be many scaffolding,
exactly.
Scaffolding for kind of builders to hang
or kind of, blokes hanging around outside shops and all that kind of thing. So,
you're going to go with what you know to make your point.
Yeah, it's professional umbrage takers, and I think, and there's been a lot of, and the mad femme thing was about that idea of, what was it about? It was basically taking the piss, wasn't it?
It was taking the piss. It was. I mean, I think. Obviously, you came with a kind of like the sort of the body of the idea was obviously kind of inspired by the sort of somewhat transphobic writings of people like Julie Bindel and Julie Burchill in various newspapers. I mean, you probably throw Suzanne Moore in there because there was something
that was actually it, wasn't it? Because Suzanne Moore had just kicked off.
Yes.
And she'd done that thing and kind of like, oh, you've got to look like a Brazilian transsexual these days, and it's like, well, why did you have to say those particular things?
Yes.
And then she got all, she could have said, well, I'm talking about particular body shapes in a particular culture, but actually what she did was ramped it up and started going, well, actually, you're all a bunch of freaks and should all be killed.
Yes. Yeah,
Not
I was going to say,
I hate to add Susan Moyle's lawyers, but but she ramped it up to that kind of level, and claimed that she was being bullied.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, and then Julie Burchill started kind of chiming in her defence and obviously making things worse.
She wrote a really, really obnoxious article where she just basically sagged off.
Was it one of those two? I can't remember at the time. You might remember yourself. Was either of those two, or am I thinking of some other comment made by somebody else who basically sort of had dismissed trans women by basically saying something along the lines of, oh yeah, cut your dick off and make out like you're a bigger feminist than me.
That was Suzanne Moore, that's what she said on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was the thing that actually...
was what sparked it off,
yeah,
really,
that was the thing that triggered the row. It was like, oh, okay, let's and actually kind of that, that's definitely an arguing tactic. It's like, okay, let's piss you off, let's make you angry, and then you'll say what you really think.
Yes.
And then it will get screenshotted and shown to everybody on the planet. And actually, I'd be interested to get old Farage in that kind of argument.
Yeah, I was going to say,
pissed and see what he comes out with.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be interesting to see where his politics lie on that one. Although I think we could probably
guess, but I think he probably doesn't even. is
no,
even aware that
he
that's
might,
a thing.
yeah, I mean, and if he is, he might actually be smart enough to deliberately not set foot into that one.
I think so.
Because I think he probably knows that sort of, they do sort of very much walk the line in terms of their sort of politics towards homosexuality in general.
Yeah.
In that basically, as far as they're concerned, go away, puss.
Yeah.
You're a little icky.
Yeah,
it's like, stop looking at pictures of it on the internet then.
Yeah, really. And actually, I think that is a lot of the alleged radical feminist TERFs
Yes.
argument against trans women. I don't actually think that what they're doing is they're dressing it up in feminism, and they're saying
it is is.
But what they're actually, I have more respect for somebody who will say, it's just yuck, than somebody who tries to actually kind of theorise their way out of.
Yeah, because while is not particularly rational, it is at least, it's an emotion. You can actually understand people having a kind of sort of like something, whether it's like spiders. We all have. There's something that makes you go that makes you
Disclaimer: he is not actually comparing transgender women to spiders.
No, not at all.
But yeah, I
am deeply supportive of the trans spider community, but you can at least understand. That feeling that makes you kind of like go, that makes you shudder, even if it's irrational.
Yeah,
exactly,
especially if it's irrational.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the whole point. If you are
rationalising your way out of it, that's obviously there you've got someone who is bigoted.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think probably knows they're bigoted, which is why they have to rationalise their way out of it. They have to defend it.
Yeah, and that's probably the definition of bigoted rather than prejudiced or just phobic or whatever.
Yeah.
Is if you have a prejudice, which everybody does.
Yes.
Or if you have, an irrational dislike or a fear, to actually, rather than dealing with that or owning it, or even if you say, look, I'll just own it. I'll just own it. It's people can go, well, I didn't grow up around. You get. Yeah, people can go, I didn't grow up around this kind of thing. I never understood it. And that's okay, if they then go, look, I just don't get it.
Yes.
If they try to understand, then that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the best option.
Yes.
But if they just kind of try and rationalise out a reason as to why they don't actually have to understand it, and actually all the fault of the people that they don't like, rather than
that's your bigotry.
Yeah, that's your bigotry, right? That's your bigotry, right?
That's right. Yeah, great big pile of bigotry.
Great big pile of bigotry. But so
you're looking for an excuse not to have to understand it or deal with it. You're basically sort of saying, oh, I shouldn't have to. I'm not in the wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You're basically sort of, sort of like, I don't have to like the puffs, right? Because they're the ones who are in the wrong.
Yeah.
Right, so I can basically be as dismissive and as rude and as abusive as I like, because I'm the one who's in the right.
Yeah, I'm normal.
I'm normal. Yes.
Yeah, and actually,
it's them who have to explain themselves to me, and even then I'm just basically going to go, no, you're still wrong.
Yeah. Or, well, I kind of see where you're coming from, but I'm still normal and you're not.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of people will say things like that and think that that's them being open-minded. Don't care what you do.
It's like
as long as I don't have to do it.
I'm open-minded. I haven't killed one yet, have I?
Yeah. I was only having a laugh and a joke.
I live in a tolerant society.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously it was. I think it was that moment that obviously basically drew a line, pretty much probably for you, but also. For me, as someone who argues with Pillocks a lot on Twitter, it sort of made a very kind of clear separating line between basically, okay, there is feminism, and then there's obviously this branch of feminism that's sort of the trans-exclusionary, that have sort of gone beyond basically, what feminism is, and obviously everybody kind of has an opinion of what feminism is or what it should be, and it's kind of it gets people into a lot of trouble trying to define it, because everybody then, it's particularly if you're a man, you're basically then accused of sort of like being the oppressor, trying to actually tell the oppressed what the nature of their oppression. You're mansplaining.
Yeah. So basically, if you have to make up a buzzword to do something, then
Yeah,
argument is wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then it basically made it fairly clear. It's kind of like, okay, so like on one side we've got sort of, rational, sort of, clear-thinking people who are basically going, well, pretty much everybody's a feminist. Everybody likes the idea of gender equality. No sort of, thinking person could possibly dismiss this. Basically, it is essentially, promoting and celebrating women.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the achievements of the the very existence of, and basically the fact that kind of like, the equality of.
Yeah.
It is not, deciding what a woman is or who is a woman or who is not a woman. It is not basically slut shaming and haranguing and abusing men.
Yeah.
Because that's completely counterproductive, and that doesn't actually do anything other than basically foster a generation of 13-year-old dickwads on gaming networks who basically see nothing but basically they'll get kind of what they see as essentially radical feminists who've basically decided that kind of bullying men into a particular viewpoint is feminism, even though there's not a single rational feminist on the planet who would agree with that. I don't think. I mean, really, is there any feminist who actually thinks the best way to get?
I'm kind of eyebrow raising the
best way to
idea
get
of bullying men into kind of, but I know what you mean though.
Yeah,
it's the kind of it's.
I'm obviously talking kind of like the turf end of things.
Yeah.
Sort of like and not just necessarily trans-exclusionary, but basically radical feminists as well. I mean, sort of basically ones that. That any normal feminist simply couldn't agree with. It's kind of like, no, that's not what this is about at all. Kind of like.
But I'm only 2.
Exactly.
I speak very well for a 2-year-old, but
he's oppressing me.
He's oppressing me with his penis while I can get a babysitter and he's only 6 months old.
Yeah.
To quote Mark Steele.
It was Mark Steele.
And he's absolutely right, and it's like, okay, so the radical. Anybody starts calling themselves radical, I think it's a bit of an eyebrow raiser.
Yeah, it's basically kind of pay attention to them because they're probably going to start a bombing campaign. Let's kind of take something else. Radical Islamists. Yeah, not good.
That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Radical Christians, they're not really that great. Bombing abortion clinics. Radical skateboarders. They don't believe that they should be any other form of transport whatsoever.
Yes, and they should probably stop it now, as they're middle-aged, most of them.
I've got 2 skateboards.
You've got skateboards, yes, but the thing is you're not desperately down a skate park with a baseball cap on back to front trying to convince yourself and others that you're still 4.
Well, it's only because I have too embarrassed to go to the skate park.
Okay, fair enough. We'll get you a half pipe for Christmas.
Hey! Awesome!
Yeah, we just need, sort of like, a good few square acres
I think we should
to set
get
it
one
up in. Well, yeah. I still think we should have a slide at work.
Yeah.
Like helter skelter from the top floor.
Yeah, we totally wanted that, and they said
no. They said it was just too
Health
costly.
And safety.
Architectural plans and expense.
Yeah.
But I think it was then. You had that kind of idea of the sort of this notion that obviously there was this split, as often happens in any kind of ideological movement. You basically get sort of like rational people, 90% of them sort of rational, understand what they're actually kind of trying to progress towards, what they're trying to do, and there's this 10% over here who are essentially narcissistic, attention-seeking malcontents who want to be in charge of something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just kind of like, hey, I want to be the voice of this particular movement, so I'm going to be as shocking and as offensive as possible.
And there's also the kind of misery addiction thing. It's like, kind of, we want equality for women. Okay, yes, that's absolutely a good point.
Wait a minute, that was too easy. It's a trick. You're playing a trick on us.
You're still oppressing us. Okay, we'll try really hard not to do that. Sorry, we don't really know. We don't really notice because it's the societal construct. We must destroy the whole of society.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we can certainly rejig it around a little bit. We're going to go for our own society over here. Okay, bye. It's a kind of separatism. There's kind of that separatism thing. I'm good with separatism. You want to be a separatist? bye. Have fun with that.
Enjoy your cabin
enjoy
in the woods.
Enjoy your cabin in the woods. Go off, be a separatist. Great,
Yeah.
sorted. Everybody's happy. But it does seem to be that separatists want everybody else to bugger off.
Yes, or to join their way of thinking.
Yes.
Again, I think it is that kind of malcontent wanting to be in charge of something,
Yeah.
wanting to spearhead this movement.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, and this is something I was thinking earlier, but you tend to get it more amongst the younger members of the movement rather than the older ones, the ones who arrive late to the party,
Yeah.
and for whom the party was somewhat in full swing, and basically it was going on and everybody was getting on and doing their thing, everybody was mingling, enjoying nibbles, etc. And they basically wanted to come as like, no, I want to be the life of the, I want to be dictating, I want to change, I want to be the DJ, I want to decide what music's going to be played.
You're all doing it wrong, listen to me.
So they basically then try to create this new wave of this particular ideology, so you get like a new wave of feminism, and basically for them the new wave of feminism is basically sort of like sort of trans people aren't women, so fuck off, you're just gay men.
Or if you're not, you can't be a lesbian because you're a man, and
it's kind of like you're only a woman if. It's like they then start.
You're only a woman if.
They then start trying to define the actual terms of, or at least redefine the terms of the ideology at a very fundamental level. It's not just a case of like, not here's what feminism is or should be, or the direction we're going to take it.
Here's what a woman is.
And
actually, a woman is what we say a woman is.
Yes.
And we get to say what a woman is because we're women and you're not.
Yeah.
And it's Morpheus. That's the problem. It's kind of if you're not on our side, then you're against us.
Yes.
If you're not one of us, then you're one of them, even if you don't know you're one of them.
Yes.
Because if you're actually a heterosexual cisgendered woman who really likes getting having sex with men, you don't really like it, you just think you do. You've got like Stockholm syndrome, you've been brainwashed.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you don't know, dear.
Yeah, absolutely. It's patronising.
It's
and
horribly
misogynistic.
patronising. It is, absolutely.
It's absolutely.
I think it's one of the worst kinds of misogyny because it's actually enacted towards women by women.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like, sort of like, oh, you don't understand, dear.
Yeah.
We're enlightened. We figured
we're
this
enlightened.
out.
Yeah, we've had our consciousnesses raised.
That's right.
Yeah, we know everything about it.
And everything that you think you are and you think you like, it's just wrong. You're having it dictated to you by men.
Yeah, and actually, despite the fact that it's the way that all mammals reproduce.
Yes.
Release in lady parts.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
It's dangerous and makes you ill and die and all that. How do you think you're going to... I mean, there's lots of people.
Where do you think in the next generation of...
That's kind of plenty.
Yeah.
But...
Where do you think the next generation of your movement's going to come from?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Do you have to... Yeah. What, are you going to just kind of grow some in an allotment? Or is that kind of...
Yeah, well then they start going kind of like, well, there's enough kind of like, the sperm banks are full enough, we can basically do it all, test tube, and it's kind of like, right, and when that runs out...
Yeah, and also then you've got...
basically, we're going to sort of like, well, we're going to relegate this one half of the species to essentially exist solely to propagate the other half. So like, well, what are you going to do if then in your kind of like radical feminist utopia you start having boys? You're basically going to harvest them for sperm as soon as they get to like 13 years old and hit puberty and then kill them.
Which kind of, isn't that effectively flipping what people used to do to women in the Disney past? Isn't that isn't that like a harem where you've got lots of virgins and you keep them in there and then you jack them or sell them or...
There's massive libraries of kind of dystopian sci-fi to which the plot is essentially that.
Yeah.
And it's always, and they're always seen not as actually, so like a thumping good read, but often as a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
It's always a cautionary tale.
Yeah, and I do get a little bit kind of, what are straight boys for again? I just don't, why? What are you for? Sorry straight boys, but it doesn't necessarily mean I want to kill them all.
It's only because they are not in your sphere of interest.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's like sort of like you don't have... It's like just because you don't actually necessarily like have a need for like a power saw, it doesn't mean that you think power saws should be wiped off the face of the earth. It's kind of like it's a tool. You understand that somebody needs one somewhere.
Dr. Freud, Dr. Freud. But yeah,
It's like you understand that basically somebody has a use for them. It's kind of like, obviously we're not trying to sort of, denigrate. We're not trying to denigrate in any way, but basically it's kind of like, everybody's like, I mean, that's the one thing that's like, the one thing you often get on some internet arguments is kind of like, it's like, I just don't get how somebody could be gay. It's kind of like, well, of course you don't. You're straight. Yeah. It's kind of like, just as a gay person couldn't necessarily get how somebody could be straight. It's just simply because it's not wired into their brain to basically find that something that they necessarily find appealing. They can understand the purpose of it, that kind of like, sort of like heterosexuality is somewhat necessary to propagate the species. But the thing is then, you can't say that, because then you're in an argument about, well, what's the point of homosexuality? What does that do for the species? And the thing is, that's been explored. Yeah. There are very good theories explaining why that's the case.
Penguins.
Penguins.
Look at penguins.
Yeah. Well, there was something I saw, and it was to do with frequency of homosexuality occurring in families. Yeah. You are more likely to find a gay man being born into a family where there are multiple female siblings who are particularly fertile.
Right.
It's almost kind of like, nature throws
kind of
in.
Redundant.
Well, yeah, it is kind of like it's nature throws in this, and it's also kind of part of the sort of the idea of kind of not group selection. I think sort of the idea of kind of like maintaining the security of the group, so that basically you do have these kind of, say, siblings who have, you'll have the two girls in the family have a bunch of kids. Yeah. You've then got one there who's basically not going to overly burden the group with more children, but also is also going to have genetically a predisposition to protect the children within that group.
Right. Yeah. So that's totally gay penguins.
That's right, and that's exactly what they do.
Yeah, I mean, gay penguins are a brilliant case in point, because if you've got, it's exactly that. Because if you've got same-sex pair bonds, and because it's pretty dangerous being a penguin.
Yes.
You kind of like, you wander down to the sea, you kind of like stop sitting on the egg for a bit, your mate sits on the egg, you go off down to the sea, go to get some fish, accidentally get eaten by a killer whale.
Yes.
And you've got
who then looks after.
Yeah, so actually what you've then got is a lot of abandoned eggs.
Yeah.
Which you've then got infertile pairs.
Yes.
Sorted.
There is an evolutionary, kind of explanation and advantage to homosexuality. It's just essentially strengthening the security of that group and ensuring that the genes are passed on, not by them, but by the siblings, and protecting those genes essentially, against accidents or problems where those siblings die or whatever, and not able to then ensure those genes are continued. I think I could be wrong, but I've also sort of read somewhere that it sort of shows up in populations where the population's growing quite quickly.
Right, so slowing down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is logical, and I was thinking about evolution the other day, as one does.
Yeah.
But I was kind of thinking, it's not so much, I don't think it's so much that the idea that we're sold is that kind of Victorian idea of kind of species striving to make themselves bigger and stronger and better and better. And actually, I don't think it's that. I think evolution is a side effect of the fact that the universe is trying to destroy us all the time.
So, women, leave us your comments below. Check out Mad Rad Femme video, which inspired this particular discussion. Check out our other videos over there. There's probably a few other things in there as well, but they're not nothing to do with us, so YouTube just puts those in. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like us on Facebook, and download our stuff for free from the website. Bye.
You realise you're doing the talky bit there is just reinforcing the patriarchy.